I left work early that day. My head was pounding and my stomach felt wrong. The office manager told me to go home and rest. I drove through the afternoon traffic, my head against the car window, thinking only about getting into bed. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. The house was mostly dark. Only the kitchen light was on. Usually my wife Sarah kept several lights on around the house. She didn't like darkness, but today everything was dark except that one room. I sat in the car for a minute, trying to decide if I had the energy to walk inside. My whole body felt heavy. I just wanted to sleep. Finally, I opened the car door and walked to the house. I used my key quietly. I don't know why I was being quiet. Maybe because I felt sick, maybe because something in my mind was already warning me. When I opened the door, I heard voices. They were whispering. My wife, my son David, and my daughter Emma. All three of them in the kitchen, speaking in low voices that people use when they don't want to be heard. I should have announced myself. I should have called out, "I'm home." But something stopped me. Something in the tone of their voices. Something serious and secretive. I stood in the hallway, my coat still on, my work bag still on my shoulder, and then I heard the sentence that made my blood turn cold. My wife's voice. "Tonight we tell him. No backing out this time." My son. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." My daughter. "We have to. We've planned everything. It has to be tonight." I remained by the door, frozen, unseen. My heart started beating so loud I was afraid they would hear it. Every part of me wanted to walk into that kitchen and demand to know what they were talking about. But something deeper, some survival instinct, told me to stay silent, to listen, to learn what they were planning before they knew I was there. So I stayed in the dark hallway, barely breathing, and listened to my family plan something that involved me. I moved carefully, inch by inch, until I was standing just outside the kitchen doorway. I could see them through the crack where the door was slightly open. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded in front of her. She looked serious, almost businesslike. This wasn't the woman who laughed at my jokes. This was someone else. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. David stood by the counter, his arms crossed. He was 23 years old, my son, my boy, but right now he looked like a stranger. His face was set, determined. Emma sat next to Sarah. She was 20 years old, still in college. She looked nervous, playing with her hair the way she always did when she was worried. "Let's go through it one more time," Sarah said. Her voice was steady, rehearsed. This wasn't a conversation. It was a meeting. "We need to be sure we have everything ready." David nodded. "The documents are in the car. I put them there this morning." "And the account?" Sarah asked. "Ready," Emma said quietly. "I transferred the information yesterday, like you told me." My mind was racing. What documents? What account? What were they preparing? Sarah looked at both of them. "He won't take this well. You both need to understand that. Once we tell him, everything will change. But we'll be safe. That's what matters." "Safe from what? Safe from me?" My hands started shaking. I pressed them against the wall to steady myself. I wanted to burst into that room and demand answers. But I forced myself to stay still. If I interrupted now, I might never know the whole truth. "Dad's too trusting," Emma said. "That's the problem. He never questions anything. He just believes whatever we tell him." Each word was like a knife. My daughter thought I was stupid. My own daughter. David spoke next. "That's why this will work. He won't see it coming until it's too late." "And by then," Sarah added, "everything will already be in motion. Even if he tries to stop it, he won't be able to." The room felt like it was spinning. I leaned against the wall, my sick feeling getting worse. What were they planning? What did they want from me? "What if he gets angry?" Emma asked. She sounded scared now. "He will get angry," Sarah said matter-of-factly. "But anger doesn't change legal documents. Anger doesn't undo signatures. By tomorrow morning, this will all be finished." Legal documents. Signatures. Tomorrow morning. The words formed a picture in my mind, but I couldn't quite see it clearly yet. All I knew was that whatever they were planning, it was organized, it was legal, and it was designed to happen whether I agreed or not. "I still feel bad," Emma whispered. "He's my father." "And that's exactly why we have to do this," Sarah said firmly. "Because he's your father, and he won't protect himself. Someone has to make the hard choices. Someone has to do what needs to be done." Protect myself from what? What danger was I in that I didn't know about? David checked his phone. He usually gets home around 6:30. It's 5 o'clock now. We have time to finish preparing. My stomach dropped. They thought I wasn't home yet. They thought they still had time. They had no idea I was standing 15 feet away, listening to every word. Remember, Sarah said, we act normal when he arrives. We have dinner like always. We wait until after dinner when he's relaxed, then we sit him down and tell him everything at once. No dragging it out. Clear, direct, final. What if he refuses? David asked. He can't refuse, Sarah answered. That's the point of doing it this way. By the time we tell him, the choice will already be made. I felt physically cold. My own wife, my own children, were planning something that would take away my choices. They were coordinating against me like I was an enemy, not family. I just hope he understands, Emma said softly. He doesn't have to understand, Sarah replied. He just has to accept it. Understanding can come later. I had heard enough. Well, not enough to know what they were actually planning, but enough to know I was in danger. Enough to know that my family, the people I loved more than anything, were working together against me. I backed away from the door as quietly as I had approached. Each step felt like it took forever. I was terrified they would hear me, would discover I was there. My hand found the front doorknob. I turned it slowly, so slowly, until I could slip back outside. The cold air hit my face. I walked to my car in a daze. My hands were still shaking as I started the engine. I sat there in the driveway for a full minute, my mind trying to process what I had just heard. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I drove away. I drove for 20 minutes before I realized I had no destination. I was just driving, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, away from my house, away from the people I thought I knew. The city streets passed by in a blur. Traffic lights, other cars, normal people living normal lives while my world was falling apart. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. When will you be home? Making dinner soon. She had no idea. She thought I was still at work, that I was following my normal schedule, that everything was going according to their plan. My finger hovered over the screen. Should I respond? Should I tell her I knew? Should I confront them now? No, not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to understand the complete picture before I acted. I didn't respond to the text. I pulled into a parking lot behind a shopping center and tried to think clearly. My head still hurt from being sick earlier. Or maybe it hurt from stress now. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. What had I actually heard? I replayed the conversation in my mind, trying to remember every word exactly. They mentioned documents, an account, signatures, doing something tonight after dinner. They talked about me being too trusting, about making choices for me because I wouldn't make them myself, about everything being out of my hands by tomorrow morning. The words formed pictures in my mind, but the pictures didn't quite make sense yet. Was this about money? It had to be about money. Everything came down to money eventually. Were they stealing from me? But that didn't make complete sense. Sarah and I had been married for 25 years. We had joint bank accounts. She had access to everything already. What would she need to steal? Unless there was money I didn't know about. Money from somewhere that I hadn't considered. But where would that money come from? Or maybe this wasn't about taking money. Maybe it was about something else entirely. What else could require documents and signatures and legal preparation? My mind went to dark places. Divorce. Maybe Sarah wanted a divorce and was preparing to take everything. But no, that didn't fit either. Why would David and Emma be involved in their mother's divorce plans? Why would they talk about keeping me safe? Safe from what? The question kept circling in my mind. Safe from what? What danger was I in that required my family to work together in secret? I needed more information. I needed to hear the rest of their plan. But how could I go back to that house without them knowing I had heard anything? How could I sit at dinner with them, pretending everything was normal, when I knew they were planning something that would change everything? Then an idea came to me. A risky idea, maybe even a stupid idea, but it was the only way I could think of to learn more without revealing what I already knew. I would go home, I would announce my arrival, I would give them time to prepare whatever they needed to prepare, and then I would watch them carefully. I would listen to every word. I would look for clues in their behavior, in their expressions, in the way they moved and spoke. Maybe they would give something away. Maybe I would see something that would help me understand. I waited in that parking lot for 30 more minutes, giving them time to finish whatever preparation they were doing. My hands were shaking. My stomach felt worse than it had when I left work. But this wasn't physical sickness anymore. This was fear. Pure, cold fear of what my own family might be planning. Finally, I sent Sarah a text. Feeling really sick. Heading home now. Be there in 20 minutes. That would give them warning. They would know I was coming. They would finish their whispered conversations and put on normal faces. They would hide whatever documents they had been discussing, and maybe they would let something slip. Maybe I would catch them in a mistake. I drove back slowly, deliberately giving them the full 20 minutes I had promised. Every traffic light felt like it lasted an hour. Every turn brought me closer to a house that no longer felt safe. When I pulled into the driveway the second time that evening, the house looked different. More lights were on now. The kitchen light that had been the only illumination before was joined by lights in the living room, the hallway, the upstairs bedrooms. The house looked normal, warm, welcoming. But I knew what was hidden inside those walls. I knew what conversations had happened in that kitchen just an hour ago. Through the kitchen window, I could see Sarah moving around, probably making dinner like she had said in her text. She looked normal, like she always looked when making dinner, like nothing was wrong, but something was very wrong. I sat in the car for a full minute, preparing myself. I had to act normal. I had to be the trusting husband and father they expected. I had to give them no reason to suspect that I knew anything. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. When I walked through the front door, Sarah appeared immediately. It was like she had been waiting for the sound of my key in the lock. "You're home." Her voice was bright, concerned. "You look terrible. Do you have a fever?" She reached out to touch my forehead. The gesture was so familiar, so normal, so caring. This was my wife, the woman I had loved for 25 years, the woman who had raised our children with me, the woman I trusted with everything. And yet I flinched when her hand came near my face. I couldn't help it. She noticed. Her hand stopped halfway. Her expression changed, just for a moment, from concern to confusion. "I'm okay," I managed to say. The words came out rougher than I intended. "Just a bad headache and stomach ache." "Go lie down," she said. "I'll bring you some medicine. You don't have to have dinner with us if you're feeling this bad." This was my chance to avoid the confrontation, to go to bed, to be alone, to have more time to think and plan, but I couldn't do it. I needed to be there. I needed to watch them. I needed to see what happened when they tried to tell me whatever they had been planning to tell me. "No, I'm fine. I can have dinner with everyone." She looked at me strangely, really looked at me, like she was trying to read my thoughts. "Are you sure? You really look sick?" "I'm sure." There was something in her eyes. Suspicion? Worry? I couldn't tell, but I knew I had to be more careful. I was acting strange, and she was noticing. David appeared from upstairs. His footsteps on the stairs were loud in the quiet house. When he reached the bottom, he smiled at me. "Hey, Dad. Rough day?" "Yeah," I said. Something I ate, I think. It was a lie. But everything felt like a lie now. Emma came out of her room next. She gave me a small smile, but wouldn't quite meet my eyes. At least she still felt guilty about whatever they were planning. That was something. "Dinner's ready," Sarah announced. "Let's eat." We moved to the dining room. This was another thing that felt wrong. We usually ate in the kitchen, casual and comfortable, but tonight Sarah had set the table in the dining room. The good plates, cloth napkins. Like this was a special occasion, like they were preparing for something important. Dinner was chicken and rice, Sarah's specialty. She made it at least twice a month. Usually I loved this meal. The way she seasoned the chicken, the way the rice absorbed all the flavors. It was comfort food, the kind of meal that made a house feel like a home. Tonight, it tasted like nothing, like I was chewing cardboard. I pushed food around my plate, moving it from one side to the other, trying to make it look like I was eating. I tried to make conversation, tried to act normal. "How was everyone's day?" David talked about work, something about a project and a deadline. I nodded at the right moments, but didn't really hear the words. Emma mentioned a test she had taken. She thought she did well. "That's good," I said automatically. Sarah asked about my day. "You left work early. Was it very busy before that?" "The usual," I said. Another lie. The meal felt like it lasted forever and also ended too quickly. Every minute that passed was another minute closer to whatever they were planning. Every bite of food was harder to swallow. Every word of conversation felt fake. Sarah cleared the plates. Her movements were calm, practiced, normal. But I could see tension in her shoulders. She was preparing herself for something. "Let's sit in the living room," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. "We need to talk to you about something." This was it. This was the moment they had been preparing for all afternoon. This was what I had overheard them planning. My heart started racing. My hands felt cold, but I stood up and followed everyone into the living room like I didn't know what was coming. We all moved to our usual spots. Sarah and I sat on the couch. David and Emma took the chairs across from us. But tonight, the seating felt different, formal, arranged, like we were in a meeting, not a family gathering. Sarah folded her hands in her lap, the same position she had been in when I first heard them talking hours ago. She took a deep breath. I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to tell them I already knew they were planning something. I wanted to demand answers right now, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to wait, to hear what they would actually say. "There's something we need to tell you," Sarah began. Her voice was careful, measured, like she had practiced this. I waited. My whole body was tense. Every muscle felt like a coiled spring, ready to explode. "We've been planning this for a few weeks now," she continued. "It wasn't an easy decision, but it's necessary." Necessary. That word again. They had used it earlier, too. Whatever this was, they had convinced themselves it was necessary. "What is?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too high, too tight. Sarah looked at David and Emma. Some kind of signal passed between them. Then she looked back at me. "You're in danger," she said simply. "Legal danger, financial danger, and you don't even know it." The words didn't make sense. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. "What are you talking about?" She leaned forward slightly. "Your business partner, Richard. He's been using your name for illegal deals. We found out 3 weeks ago." Richard. The name hit me like a punch. My business partner of 15 years. The man I had lunch with twice a week. The man whose family came to our house for barbecues. The man I trusted with half of everything our business owned. "That's not possible," I whispered. "It is possible," Sarah said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "It's not just possible. It's happening, right now. He's been forging your signature on documents, opening accounts in your name, making deals that could get you arrested." The room started spinning. This couldn't be real. Richard wouldn't do that. We were partners. We were friends. David leaned forward in his chair. "Mom found out by accident. She saw some paperwork that didn't make sense. We investigated quietly because we knew you wouldn't believe us if we just told you. Dad, Richard is setting you up to take the fall for fraud. Major fraud. The kind that sends people to federal prison." Federal prison. The words made my stomach drop. Emma's voice was shaking when she spoke. "We've been working with a lawyer for 3 weeks. Everything we've been doing, the secret documents, the new accounts, all the whispering, it's all to protect you, to separate your assets from the business before Richard's crimes catch up with everything." I felt like I couldn't breathe. My vision was narrowing, tunneling down to just Sarah's face in front of me. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out as barely more than a whisper. "Because," Sarah said gently, taking my hand, "you wouldn't have believed us. You trust Richard completely. You've trusted him for 15 years. If we had come to you 3 weeks ago and said, 'Your partner is a criminal,' what would you have done?" I knew the answer. I would have defended him. I would have been angry at them for suggesting such a thing. I would have thought they were wrong, mistaken, maybe even jealous of my success. "You would have confronted him," David said, reading my mind. "You would have asked him directly, and if you had confronted him, he would have known we were onto him. He would have accelerated his timeline. He would have done whatever final steps he needed to completely trap you." "We needed to move faster than he could react," Emma added. "We needed to protect everything before he knew we suspected anything." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Tonight was supposed to be the night we told you everything. Tomorrow morning, you're meeting with a lawyer to sign papers that will legally separate you from the business and protect everything we own. Everything is already in motion. We've already moved most of your assets into accounts Richard can't access." "We used the power of attorney you gave Mom years ago," David explained. "The one for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency." I sat there, trying to process everything they were saying. This wasn't betrayal. This wasn't theft. This was rescue. They had been working for 3 weeks to save me from something I didn't even know existed. Sarah stood up and walked across the room to the desk in the corner. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. The folder was blue, the kind lawyers use for important documents. It looked heavy, full. She handed it to me. Her hands were steady, but I could see concern in her eyes. "This is everything we found. Every piece of evidence, every document, every transaction. Take your time. Look at everything." I opened the folder with shaking hands. The first page was a bank statement. I read the header, Harrison and Collins business account. That was our business account, the one Richard and I had opened together 15 years ago when we first became partners. But the account number was wrong. This wasn't the account number I knew. I checked the date on the statement 3 months ago. The balance showed $250,000. I had never seen this account before. "What is this?" I asked. "Turn to the next page," David said quietly. I flipped the page. Another bank statement. Different account number, same business name, $400,000, then another, then another. Page after page of bank accounts I had never opened, never seen, never knew existed, all of them with my name attached, all of them controlled by Richard. "How long has this been happening?" My voice barely worked. "At least 3 years that we can document," Sarah said. "Maybe longer. Richard was very careful. He only used these accounts for certain transactions. Transactions that looked legitimate on the surface but weren't." I kept flipping through the folder. After the bank statements came documents. Contracts, agreements, investment papers. Each one had a signature at the bottom, my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. It was close, very close. Someone who didn't know my handwriting well would think it was real. But I had been signing my name for 52 years. I knew every loop, every angle, every pressure point of my own signature. These weren't mine. "He forged my signature," I said. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth. "On dozens of documents," Emma confirmed. "Maybe hundreds. We're still finding them." One contract caught my eye. It was an agreement to purchase a company called TechFlow Solutions for $3 million. The signature at the bottom was supposedly mine. The date was 6 months ago. "I never bought any company," I said. "I've never even heard of TechFlow Solutions." "That's because it doesn't exist," David explained. "It's a shell company. Richard created it. On paper, it looks like you bought this company for $3 million. In reality, Richard moved $3 million of business money into an account he controlled, claimed it was a legitimate business purchase, and pocketed the money." My head was spinning. $3 million? That's just one transaction. There are others. Smaller amounts, but they add up. Over the past 3 years, Richard has stolen approximately $6 million from the business using your name. $6 million. The number was so large, it didn't feel real. "Where did the money come from?" "From our clients," Sarah said. "Richard was overcharging them and pocketing the difference. He was also taking loans against the business using your name as collateral. He was creating fake expenses and billing them to clients, then keeping the money. He was running multiple schemes simultaneously. I found more documents, loan applications. All denied, thank God, but all with my forged signature. Insurance claims for equipment that never existed. Invoices for services never rendered. A pattern of fraud so extensive that it must have taken years to set up. And all of this leads back to me?" "On paper, yes," David said. "If police had investigated, they would have found your name, your signature, or what looks like your signature, your authorization. They would have concluded you were the one running these schemes." "While Richard stayed in the background, clean and innocent," Sarah added. "He positioned himself as just the junior partner, the guy who follows orders. You would have been the mastermind. He would have been the unwitting accomplice at worst." I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. I stood up quickly and Sarah pointed me toward the bathroom. I barely made it before I threw up everything I had eaten for dinner. When I came back to the living room, my family was waiting quietly. Emma had tears on her face. David looked grim. Sarah looked worried but determined. "I'm sorry," Sarah said. "I know this is a lot to process." "How did you find all this?" I asked, sitting back down heavily. She took a breath. 3 weeks ago, a piece of mail came to our house by mistake. It was a bank statement for one of these accounts. It should have gone to Richard's address. He had arranged for all the statements for these fake accounts to go to his house. But someone at the bank made an error and sent this one here. I almost threw it away," she continued. "It looked like junk mail at first. But something made me open it. When I saw it was a bank statement with your name and our business name, but an account number I didn't recognize, I started digging." David picked up the story. "Mom called me first. She was worried she was missing something, that maybe it was a legitimate account she just didn't know about. I looked at it and immediately knew something was wrong. The transactions didn't make sense. Money coming in from sources that weren't our clients. Money going out to companies I'd never heard of." "So we started investigating," Emma said. "Quietly, carefully. We couldn't ask you because if Richard had somehow found out we were looking into things, he would have destroyed evidence. We couldn't go to the police yet because we didn't have enough proof. We needed to build a complete case." "Mom hired a private investigator," David said. "Someone who specializes in financial fraud. It cost us $5,000, but it was worth it. He found accounts we never would have found. He traced money through shell companies and offshore transfers. He documented everything." Sarah pulled out another folder from the desk. This one was even thicker. This is the investigator's full report. Every transaction traced, every forgery documented, every crime cataloged. Richard has been running this scheme for at least 3 years, possibly longer. He's stolen millions. He's committed multiple felonies. And he's set you up to take the blame for all of it. I took the second folder and started reading. The investigator's report was detailed, professional, damning. Page after page of evidence. Timelines showing when each fake account was opened. Analysis comparing Richard's handwriting to the forged signatures. Financial trails showing exactly where the stolen money went. Much of it went to Richard's personal accounts. Some went to his wife's accounts. Some went to accounts for his children. College funds that shouldn't exist given his actual salary from our business. He had been living far beyond his means for years, and I had never questioned it. I had thought he was just good with money, that he invested well, that his wife had family money. The truth was simpler and darker. He was stealing from our business, from our clients, from me. "There's something else," Sarah said quietly. "Something we need to tell you." I looked up from the report. "What?" "Richard has been preparing to disappear. The investigator found evidence that he's been moving money overseas. He has accounts in the Cayman Islands. He's been shopping for property in countries that don't have extradition treaties with the United States. He's planning to run." "When?" "Soon. Maybe in the next few weeks. Maybe sooner. That's why we had to act now. That's why we couldn't wait any longer to tell you. If Richard disappears before we protect you, you'll be left holding the bag for everything. The police will investigate. They'll find your name on everything. They'll arrest you. And Richard will be on a beach somewhere, living off the millions he stole, while you're in federal prison." The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. I could have gone to prison. For crimes I didn't commit. For fraud I didn't know about. Because I trusted the wrong person. "What happens now?" I asked. Sarah sat next to me and took my hand. "Now we finish what we started. Tomorrow morning, you meet with our lawyer. Her name is Margaret Chen. She's excellent, specializes in fraud protection and white-collar crime. You'll review everything with her. You'll sign documents that legally separate you from the business and from Richard. You'll provide a sworn statement that you had no knowledge of any of these illegal activities. Then what? Then Margaret will contact the police. She'll provide all this evidence. They'll investigate. They'll confirm what we already know, that Richard is a criminal and you're a victim. They'll arrest him before he can run." "And our business?" Sarah's expression was sad. "The business will probably be seized as proceeds of criminal activity. Most of Richard's fraud involved business funds. The government will take everything as part of their case against him. You'll lose your investment in it. Everything you built over 30 years. 30 years of work. 15 years of partnership. All of it built on lies I never saw. But," David added, "you won't lose everything else. That's what these past 3 weeks have been about. We've been moving your personal assets, our savings, our investments, the house, retirement accounts, into protected trusts and accounts that can't be touched by Richard's crimes. Even if the business is seized, even if Richard tries to claim you owe him money or tries to sue you, he can't touch what we've protected." "We've saved about 80% of your personal wealth," Emma said. "Some assets were too entangled with the business to separate. Those are probably lost. But most of what you own is safe now. Richard can't take it. The government can't seize it as proceeds of crime because it was never involved in the criminal activity. You'll be okay. We'll be okay." I looked at the three of them. My wife, who had spent 3 weeks investigating a criminal and building a case while I remained oblivious. My son, who had helped coordinate a complex financial protection strategy while working his own job. My daughter, who had transferred assets and prepared documents despite being terrified the entire time. "I heard you," I said again. "This afternoon. I came home early because I was sick. I didn't know you were all here. I stood in the hallway and heard you talking." They all froze again. The room went completely silent. "I heard you say, 'Tonight we tell him. No backing out this time,'" I continued. "I heard you talk about documents and moving money and forged signatures. I heard you say I was too trusting, that I wouldn't see it coming until it was too late, that by tomorrow morning everything would be out of my hands." Sarah's face had gone pale. "What did you think we were talking about?" "I thought you were stealing from me. I thought my own family was working together to rob me, to kick me out of my own life somehow. I left the house and sat in my car trying to figure out what you were planning to do to me." Emma started crying harder. "Oh my God, Dad, you thought we were the criminals?" "What else was I supposed to think? You were whispering about secrets and doing things without my knowledge. You were planning to tell me something tonight that would change everything. You said I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. I was terrified." David put his head in his hands. "We were trying to protect you, and we made you afraid of us instead." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said. Tears were running down her face now. "I never thought. We never considered that you might overhear us, that you might misunderstand. We were so focused on keeping the investigation secret from Richard that we didn't think about how suspicious our behavior must have looked to you." "I understand now," I said. "I understand that you were helping me, that you were saving me. But Sarah, for 3 hours today, I thought my marriage was over. I thought my children were working with you to steal everything I had. I thought my whole life was a lie." She pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We should have found a better way. We should have told you sooner. We were just so scared that if we told you too early, you would confront Richard and ruin everything." "You were probably right," I admitted. "If you had told me 3 weeks ago, I would have gone straight to Richard and demanded an explanation. I would have believed whatever he told me. I would have thought you were mistaken or jealous or something. I wouldn't have believed my partner was a criminal until I saw proof." "And by then, it would have been too late," David said. "Richard would have destroyed evidence. He would have moved up his timeline to disappear. He might have done something to implicate you even further. We had to work fast, and we had to work in secret." "I know. I understand that now. But those hours, sitting in my car, thinking my family was my enemy, that was the worst feeling of my life." Emma came over and hugged me too. "We love you, Dad. Everything we did was because we love you and wanted to protect you." "I know that now." We sat together for a long time, processing everything: the betrayal by Richard, the protection by my family, the fear and confusion and relief all mixed together. Finally, I pulled away and looked at all of them. "Show me everything again. I need to see it all. I need to understand exactly what Richard did and exactly what you did to stop him." And we spent the next 4 hours going through every document, every transaction, every piece of evidence. Sarah explained how she found each clue. David showed me the financial analysis he had done. Emma walked me through the asset protection strategy they had implemented. By the time we finished, it was past midnight. My head was full of information. My heart was full of gratitude and anger and fear all at once. But I understood. I finally understood the complete picture. Richard had been using me. My family had been saving me. The whispered conversations weren't betrayal. They were love in action. "Thank you," I said to all 3 of them. "Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for doing what I wouldn't have done. Thank you for being brave enough to work in secret and strong enough to keep going even when it was hard." "You're our family," Sarah said simply. "We protect each other. Always." That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Richard's face. I saw all the times he had smiled at me, joked with me, acted like my friend. All of it had been a performance. All of it had been a lie. And every time I opened my eyes, I saw my family sleeping nearby, Sarah next to me, David and Emma in their rooms, and I felt overwhelming gratitude that they had seen the truth when I was blind to it. "How did you move the assets without him noticing?" I asked. "Carefully," David said. "We used small transfers over several weeks. Nothing large enough to trigger alerts. We moved money from the accounts Richard had access to into new accounts he didn't know about." "The lawyer set up a trust," Sarah added. "Everything we own, the house, the savings, the investments, it's all in a protected trust now. If Richard's crimes catch up to the business, they can't touch our personal assets anymore." "And the business?" "That's what tomorrow is for," Sarah said. "Tomorrow you're signing papers that legally separate you from the business. You're removing yourself as a partner. You're creating documentation that shows you had no knowledge of or involvement in Richard's activities." "Will it work?" I asked. "The lawyer thinks so, especially once we turn over all this evidence to the authorities. Richard will be arrested. The investigation will show you were a victim, not a participant." I sat back on the couch, exhausted. My family had saved me. While I was living my normal life, completely unaware, they had been working to protect everything we had built. "I'm sorry I suspected you," I said. "I'm sorry we scared you," Sarah replied. "We should have found a way to tell you sooner. If you had told me, I would have done exactly what you thought. I would have defended Richard. I would have refused to believe my friend of 15 years could do this. That's what we were afraid of." Emma was still crying softly. "I hated lying to you, Dad. Every day I wanted to tell you, but Mom said we had to wait until everything was ready." I pulled her into a hug. "You did the right thing. You all did." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Sarah, staring at the ceiling, my mind processing everything I had learned. The bedroom was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight filtering through the curtains. The house was silent. Everyone else was asleep. But my mind wouldn't stop. Richard, my partner, my friend, had been destroying my life slowly and carefully for years. 3 years minimum, possibly longer. How many conversations had we had during that time? How many lunches where he smiled at me and joked about business and acted like we were equals? How many times had I trusted him with decisions, with accounts, with signatures? Every memory felt tainted now. Every smile felt like a mask. Every friendly gesture felt like manipulation. And my family had discovered it and fixed it without me knowing anything. While I was living my normal life, completely unaware of the danger I was in, they had been working in secret to save me. 3 weeks of investigation. 3 weeks of stress and fear. 3 weeks of keeping secrets and making plans. I thought about Sarah finding that bank statement. If it hadn't come to our house by mistake, would we have ever discovered the truth? Would Richard have successfully stolen everything and disappeared, leaving me to face federal charges? The thought made my stomach turn. "Are you awake?" Sarah whispered beside me. "Yes." She rolled over to face me. In the dim light, I could see the concern in her eyes. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Richard, the business. How close I came to losing everything, how I didn't see any of it." "You weren't supposed to see it. That was the whole point of his scheme. He built it so that you would never notice until it was too late." "But you saw it. You found that one bank statement and you immediately knew something was wrong. Why didn't I?" She was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Because you trusted him. Completely. Without reservation. That kind of trust is beautiful, but it's also dangerous. It makes you blind to warning signs. It makes you ignore evidence that doesn't fit your belief in someone." I should have been more careful. Maybe. But Tom, you can't live your whole life suspecting everyone. You can't look at every friend, every partner, every relationship and wonder if they're lying to you. That's no way to live. It's better than being naive. Is it? Is constant suspicion really better than occasional betrayal? I thought about that. I don't know anymore. Sarah reached out and took my hand in the darkness. Richard didn't win. That's what matters. He tried to destroy you, and he failed. Because your family was watching. Because that one piece of mail came to the wrong address. Because I followed my instincts when something felt off. He almost won, but almost isn't the same as actually winning. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. Even though I already knew the answer, I just needed to hear it again. "Tomorrow we go to the lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Margaret Chen. You'll review all the documents we prepared. The separation papers, the sworn statements, the asset protection trusts, everything that proves you're a victim, not a participant. You'll sign everything. Then Margaret will contact the police with all the evidence we've gathered. They'll investigate. Within days, maybe within hours, they'll arrest Richard. And then? And then we rebuild. You start over without him. We use what we saved to create something new, something honest, something that belongs to you and nobody else." "I don't know if I can, Sarah. I'm 52 years old. I built that business from nothing. It took me 30 years. 30 years of work, of sacrifice, of building something I was proud of. And now I have to walk away from it? I have to watch it be seized by the government? I have to start from zero again." My voice cracked on that last question. I hadn't realized until that moment how much the loss actually hurt. It wasn't just about money. It was about identity. I was a business owner. I was successful. I had built something that mattered. And now all of that was being taken away, even though I had done nothing wrong. "You're not walking away," Sarah said firmly. "You're being pushed out by a criminal. There's a difference. Walking away is a choice. Being pushed out means you're a victim, and victims don't carry the shame of failure." "It doesn't feel different." "I know. Right now it feels like loss. It feels like failure. But Tom, listen to me. That business was built on a partnership. Half of it belonged to Richard, which means half of it was already corrupted. When the police seize it, they're taking his half and the half he contaminated with his crimes. They're not taking what you built, they're taking what he destroyed." I wanted to believe her, but all I felt was empty. "You still have your reputation," she continued. "Once the investigation is complete, everyone will know you were deceived. Your clients will know. Your industry contacts will know. Nobody will think less of you. They'll sympathize. They'll want to help. Or they'll wonder how I didn't see it, how I worked with Richard for 15 years and never noticed he was a criminal. Then let them wonder. Their opinion doesn't change the truth. And the truth is that Richard was a professional con artist. He fooled you because fooling people was his skill. That's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on him." We lay there in silence for a while. I tried to process everything, the betrayal, the fear, the loss, the gratitude, the shame. It was too much. Too many emotions fighting for space in my head. "What am I supposed to tell people?" I asked finally. "When they ask what happened to the business? When they want to know why I'm starting over?" You tell them the truth. Your partner was committing fraud. You were a victim. The business was seized as evidence. You're starting fresh. That easy? No, not easy, but simple. The truth is always simple, even when it's hard. I rolled onto my side to face her fully. I'm scared, Sarah. I'm 52 years old, and I have to start my entire career over. I don't know if I have the energy for that. I don't know if I can build something new. She moved closer, her face inches from mine. You don't have to build an empire. You don't have to recreate what you had before. You just have to do something honest that pays the bills and makes you feel like yourself. That's all. The rest, the success, the growth, the reputation, that can come later if it comes at all. But right now, you just need to survive and rebuild. What if I fail? Then you fail, and we adjust. We've survived worse than failure, Tom. We can survive anything as long as we're together. Her words should have been comforting, and in a way they were. But they also highlighted how much we had lost, how much I had cost my family through my blind trust in the wrong person. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry I didn't see what Richard was doing. I'm sorry you had to spend 3 weeks investigating and protecting and worrying. I'm sorry my stupidity put all of us in danger. You're not stupid, you're trusting. There's a difference. Is there? Because right now they feel like the same thing. Sarah pulled me into a hug. Stop. Stop blaming yourself. Richard is the criminal. Richard is the liar. Richard is the one who broke the law and betrayed his partner. You're the victim here. Don't let him turn you into the villain of your own story. I held on to her in the darkness, trying to absorb her certainty, trying to believe that I wasn't responsible for my own near destruction. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have known, should have seen the signs, should have questioned the bank accounts and the expensive lifestyle and the deals that seemed too good to be true. Should have, should have, should have. The words circled in my mind like vultures. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted into a restless sleep filled with dreams of signatures that weren't mine, and accounts I didn't control, and a partner's smile that hid teeth ready to bite. When I woke up, the sun was already up. Sarah's side of the bed was empty. I could hear voices downstairs, the family already awake, already preparing for what came next. Today was the day I signed away my business, the day I became officially separate from Richard and his crimes, the day I stopped being a business owner and became... What? I didn't even know. I got dressed slowly, my body feeling heavy like every movement required extra effort. The suit felt wrong somehow, too formal, too much like the person I used to be instead of the person I was becoming. When I went downstairs, everyone was in the kitchen. David was making coffee. Emma was setting out breakfast. Sarah was organizing the folders of documents we would need for the lawyers' meeting. They all looked tired. Lines of stress on their faces, dark circles under their eyes. This had taken a toll on them, too. While I had been sleeping soundly, completely ignorant of the danger, they had been carrying the weight of knowledge, the weight of secrets, the weight of protecting me. "Morning, Dad," Emma said quietly. She handed me a cup of coffee. "Morning." "Big day?" David added. He tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Yeah." We ate breakfast in near silence, toast and eggs that tasted like nothing. We were all thinking about what came next, about the lawyer's office, about the police investigation, about Richard's arrest, about the end of everything I had worked for 30 years to build. At 8:30, we got in the car. Sarah drove because I didn't trust my shaking hands. David and Emma sat in the back. Nobody talked. What was there to say? We all knew what was happening. We all knew it was necessary. But knowing something is necessary doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make the loss hurt less. It doesn't make the fear go away. The lawyer's office was downtown, in a tall glass building that made me feel small. We rode the elevator to the 15th floor in silence. The lawyer's name was Margaret Chen. She was about 40, sharp-eyed, with a no-nonsense manner that made me trust her immediately. "Mr. Harrison," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "your family has done excellent work gathering this evidence. What your partner did was sophisticated, but not sophisticated enough." We sat in her conference room. She laid out documents across the large table. "These are the separation papers. They legally dissolve your partnership with Richard Collins. They create a clear record that as of today, you are no longer associated with any business decisions or accounts. They also include your sworn statement that you had no knowledge of the fraudulent activities outlined in this evidence folder." I looked at the papers. My whole career reduced to legal documents. If I sign this, what happens to the business? It will likely collapse once Richard is arrested. His fraud is extensive. The business itself may be seized as proceeds of criminal activity. You'll lose your investment in it. 30 years of work, gone. But, Margaret continued, if you don't sign this, you'll be implicated in his crimes. Your name is on many of these documents. Without clear evidence that you were deceived, prosecutors might decide you were complicit. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. I picked up the pen. Wait, Margaret said. Before you sign, I want you to understand something. The moment you sign these papers and I submit this evidence to the authorities, there's no going back. Your partnership is over. Your business relationship with Richard Collins is finished. He will be arrested, likely within days. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Richard, about the years we had worked together, the late nights building the company, the successes we celebrated, the failures we survived. All of it had been a lie. Not for him. For him, it had been a cover story, a legitimate front for criminal activity. But for me, it had been real. I had believed in what we were building. I'm prepared, I said. I signed my name on every document Margaret placed in front of me. Each signature felt like I was killing something, but I knew it was necessary. Sometimes you have to destroy something to save yourself. When it was done, Margaret gathered all the papers. I'll file these today, and I'll contact the fraud division this afternoon. They'll likely want to interview you within the week. What should I tell Richard? I asked. Nothing. Don't contact him at all. Let the police handle it. He'll wonder where I am. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Cancel it. Tell him you're sick, but don't tell him anything else. The less he knows, the better. We left the office. On the drive home, none of us spoke. I felt numb. That afternoon, I sent Richard a text. Not feeling well, taking a few days off. He replied immediately. No problem. Rest up. We have a big deal closing Friday. A big deal? Another piece of his scheme, probably. Another trap with my name on it. I turned off my phone. 3 days later, they arrested Richard. Margaret called to tell me. He was taken from the office in handcuffs. The police seized all the computers, all the files, everything. It's done, Margaret said. You're officially clear. The evidence shows you were a victim, not a participant. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. The news hit the local papers the next day. Local business owner arrested for fraud. They mentioned my name too, explaining that I had been deceived by my partner and had cooperated with the investigation. My phone started ringing. Old clients calling to ask if their accounts were safe. Business associates wanting to know what had happened. Reporters wanting comments. I didn't answer any of them. A week later, Richard's lawyer contacted Margaret. He wanted to make a deal. He was willing to provide information about other people involved in his schemes if they reduced his charges. Does he mention me? I asked Margaret. He confirms you had no knowledge of his activities. He says you were useful to him precisely because you were honest and trusting. It made his fake documents more credible if your name was attached to them. Useful. I had been useful to him. A tool, a cover story. He's asking if you'll visit him, Margaret said. No. He says he wants to apologize. I don't care. Are you sure? Some victims find closure in confronting. I'm not interested in closure. I'm interested in moving forward. But moving forward was harder than I expected. I had no business anymore, no partner, no company. Everything I had built was gone, seized by the government as evidence. I started working on cars again. It was what I had done before the business took off. I set up a small garage in our basement. Nothing fancy, just fixing things for neighbors and friends. It was honest work, simple work. And slowly, very slowly, it started to feel like enough. Sarah went back to teaching. She had quit her job 10 years ago when the business was successful enough that we didn't need 2 incomes. Now we needed 2 incomes again. David got promoted at his company. Emma finished her degree. We had family dinners where we talked about normal things, work, school, the weather. We didn't talk about Richard. We didn't talk about the fraud. We didn't talk about how close we had come to losing everything. 6 months after Richard's arrest, Margaret called with news. Richard took a plea deal, 20 years in federal prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 15. Okay, I said. Also, there's some money. The government is returning funds they can trace directly to your investment in the business, about $80,000. It was a fraction of what I had put in over 30 years, but it was something. Thank you, Margaret, for everything. Your family saved you, Mr. Harrison. I just did the paperwork. She was right. My family had saved me. While I was living in blissful ignorance, they had seen the danger and acted. They had kept secrets and made plans and done difficult things because they loved me. That night at dinner, I looked at Sarah, at David, at Emma. I never properly thanked you, I said. For what? Sarah asked. For saving my life. We saved your assets, David corrected. Your life was never in danger. Yes, it was. Not physical danger. But Richard was going to destroy everything. My reputation, my freedom, my future. You stopped him. All of you. You worked together and you saved me. Emma smiled. That's what families do. Not all families. Most families would have missed the signs, or ignored them, or not known what to do. But you three, you were brilliant, strategic, brave. We were terrified, Sarah admitted. The whole time, we were terrified we would make a mistake, that Richard would find out what we were doing, that we were wrong about everything. But you weren't wrong. No, we weren't. I raised my glass. To family, the people who save you even when you don't know you need saving. We clinked glasses across the table. A year after everything fell apart, I started a new business. Small scale, just me and 2 employees. We did car restorations. Classic cars, vintage motorcycles, anything with an engine and history. It wasn't as profitable as the old business, but it was honest. Every dollar I made, I earned with my own hands. No partners, no complicated deals. Sarah loved it. You're happier now, she said one morning. Am I? Yes. You work with things you can fix, things that make sense. This is better for you. David stopped by the garage one afternoon. I have something to tell you, he said. What? I'm starting my own business, software development. I'm ready to quit my job and do it full time. I felt a flash of fear. David, I know it's risky, but I learned from watching what happened to you. I learned that you can't let fear stop you from trying. Who are you going to partner with? No one, just me. I saw what a bad partnership can do. Then you have my blessing. Emma graduated that spring. She came to me after the ceremony. I want to thank you, she said. For what? For not giving up? You showed me that failure isn't the end. It's just a new beginning. That evening, I sat in my garage working on a Mustang. The engine was laid out in organized pieces. Sarah came down with coffee. Do you ever think about that day? She asked. Which day? The day you came home early and heard us talking. The day you thought we were betraying you. I set down my wrench. Yes, I think about it sometimes. How does it make you feel? Grateful. If I hadn't come home early, I wouldn't have had that moment of fear, that moment when I thought my family was my enemy. I needed that moment. Why? Because it made me understand something important. It made me understand that not everything is what it seems, that whispered conversations might be protection, not betrayal, that secrets might be shields, not knives. I spent so many years trusting blindly. That day taught me to look closer, to question more, to be aware. You're not angry we kept it secret? I was angry at first, but no, not anymore. You did what you had to do. You saved me from my own blind trust. If you had told me earlier, I would have ruined everything by defending Richard. You knew me better than I knew myself. She sipped her coffee. Do you miss the old business? Sometimes. I miss the success. I miss the money. I miss feeling important. And now? Now I'm fixing cars in my basement. I'm making a fraction of what I used to make. I work with my hands and my back aches at the end of the day. I smiled. And I'm happier than I've been in 20 years. Because it's honest. Because it's mine. Really mine. No partners. No complications. Just me and the work. Sarah stood up and kissed the top of my head. I'm proud of you. For starting over. For not giving up. For building something new from the ruins of something old. I couldn't have done it without you, without all of you. Yes, you could have, but you didn't have to. That's what family means. I thought about Richard sometimes. He was in prison, probably would be for 15 years. I wondered if he ever thought about me, if he ever felt guilty. Probably not. People like Richard don't feel guilty. They feel entitled. They believe the world owes them something. But I didn't hate him. Hatred would have given him too much power over my life. Instead, I felt nothing. He was a chapter that had closed, a problem that had been solved. The people I thought about with love were Sarah, David, and Emma. The people who had seen danger I couldn't see. The people who had moved in secret to protect me. I finished the engine at midnight, every piece in its place, every connection secure. I stepped back to look at it. It wasn't running yet. That would take more work. But the foundation was there. Everything was ready to come back to life, just like me. That night, I didn't dream about Richard or fraud. I dreamed about the Mustang, running smoothly, everything in harmony. I dreamed about things broken becoming whole, and when I woke up, I was grateful, not for the betrayal or loss, but for the people who had stood between me and destruction, the people who had whispered in kitchens, making plans to save me, the people who had loved me enough to keep secrets, because what I heard that day wasn't betrayal, it was love in action. It was family being family. It was protection disguised as secrecy. And in the end, it was exactly what I needed, even though I didn't know I needed it. That's the thing about being saved. Sometimes you don't know you're drowning until someone pulls you to safety. And sometimes the people pulling you to safety look like enemies until you finally understand they're heroes. My family were heroes, and I was the luckiest man alive to have them. That's the truth I learned from the night they planned everything, the night I thought my world was ending, the night that actually saved my life.